And we appreciate everyone being here. Sorry for the delay. We had a little technical difficulties, but our are you going somewhere? Oh, but our staff has been able to pull it all together. So if I could ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst. Commissioner Glassman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman is not present. Commissioner Sturman.
Here.
Mayor Trentalis.
Here. And Mr. Chair, would you like to call the roll of your?
I'll call.
You want to call?
Yeah, I'll call.
Okay.
Brewster Knott. Ed Rebholz. Not present. Steve Witten. Michael Boyer. Present. Norbert McLaughlin.
Here.
Noel Norvell.
Here.
James Harrison.
Here.
Robin Chiarelli. Tyler Brunell.
Here.
Robert Washington. Elizabeth George. And Barry Flanagan.
And we have a quorum.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much. So, first of all, I appreciate all of you taking your time out of your busy day to, participate in this joint meeting between ourselves and yourself. I know there are a number of issues that continue to materialize during the course of the work that we ask you to perform. So, Mr. Witten, would you like to take over?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. The number one, thank you for lunch. Thank you for making time for us. As per the roll call, most of the board is here. That means a lot to us. We have a fresh new board with willing to take on the challenges we have ahead. And aside from dealing with the waivers we have each month, et cetera, and other challenges that the board has, we have been discussing with you folks the possibility of putting a pause on waivers on the New River for a period of time while we basically, as quoting my friend Jimmy Harrison, have time for thoughtful conversation and strategic planning. You guys have seen, again, the various videos. We will do it one more time so Mr. Harrison can point things out a little better. But we are in an inflection point, and we shared this the last time we had an opportunity to speak with you, and there is no selfish motivation other than preserving the New River and the waterways for our families, but also for the operators, operations, et cetera, that provide so much livelihood to so many people in the area. With that, I would like to introduce Jimmy Harrison, who will give you an overview of what we are trying to accomplish, with your permission, please.
Great, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
You have to push that button, yeah. Push the button right there, yeah.
There. Hi, thank you. I'm Jimmy Harrison. Just to kind of give is this real loud? A background on why we're here, today in the Marine Advisory Board here. We've been having a lot of waivers to be asked for specific areas, and the areas in concern are the passing areas of the river. And the passing areas of the river are by the tunnel is the one area, and just west of the launching ramps right around the corner here at Cooley's Landing. Those are the two wide areas of the river where boats are able to pass that are being towed upriver. Those are also areas where they're able to wait and hold while the train bridge goes up and down. So the train is, as you know, is a big impedance to traffic on the water, but that's the only place that they can safely stop, and wait. The boats that are going upriver increasingly are larger and larger over time. And as you've seen in the videos that we've shown, it's very tight, getting up. So it's a limited area. So the history of where the waivers started and why this issue is now is the Coral Castle. When that waiver came to the Marine Advisory Board, the Marine Advisory Board denied it. The Commission then overrode that recommendation and gave approval for it. There was precedence of that in a property that was across the canal from that property. So there's been precedence established of giving these waivers. And the with the passing of that waiver, there's been an avalanche of requests for additional waivers in that general area, like all over. So it's kind of the floodgates are open, and it's, now's the time. And what it is, that the waivers are for doing stern-to docking, where instead of going parallel with the shore for the boats, that they can go stern in and dock pointing out, into the river. So the waivers are for asking for dolphin pilings to moor the boat safely to, which is necessary in order to put your boat pointed out, into the river, especially into the river. It's a river, so it flows. So there's current in it, and so it's to do it safely, you need to have very secure docking ability to do that. The pilings are being put in a manner, and the waivers are always for a boat that's basically the length of the piling, coming out. So it's a 60-foot boat that's going to go in the 60-foot. But what that also allows you to do is, with the 30% rule, the canal is, or the river is 200-something feet wide or 300 feet wide, in that area. So 30%, you could legally, put a 85, 90, 95-foot boat in that slip. That's not what the waiver is being told or being allowed to do, but you would be able to do that. And with putting in very large boats, in that area, you're cordoning off, or you're really choking down the width of what the waterway is, and making it more just like a marina. That you have just boats all stacked next to each other, pointed out, and you have a gauntlet that you're trying to get through without smashing in anybody's boat if you're towing it. Additionally, the barges that are necessary to go up and down the river are wide as well, and they're slow and they're very hard to maneuver. So already there have been barges stuck upriver when dolphin pilings have been put in, and they couldn't get out because now the width of the canal, the width of the river is too narrow. Then specifically, those were barges that were a barge that was being used at Bradford Marine for construction that was there, couldn't get back out until they had the pilings removed to get the barge out and then put back in after the barge went through. And with the seawall replacement that's going to be happening, for the next near future, there's going to be a lot of barges necessary to go up and down the river, as well as there is a barge that needs to go periodically to the power plant up the river in order to carry heavy infrastructure that can't be trucked or trained to the power plant. It's something to do with a generator, has to go on a barge, that's up there. So this is not only for the marine industry, this is our power supply, that needs to go up and down. So barges are important, as well as the big boats that are going up and down. So what we're asking for basically is a breather, and that we're denying all of these applications coming in for waivers, and worried that the commission will be pressured, by the applicants to make them to turn us, to ignore our recommendations of doing that. And for the marine industry, it would be catastrophic for it. It would basically, it already is, known, in the marine world as being the hardest river to navigate on the East Coast. You can YouTube search that. You'll find videos of, how difficult it is to make it up and down the river. It takes two boats, two tugboats. It's very difficult, it's very expensive for people to get up and down the river now. And if we make it hard enough, they will go somewhere else. There is other places where people can get their boats fixed. Fort Lauderdale is, all the boats that you see here are not necessarily people that live here or keep their boat here. Boats are brought to Fort Lauderdale to sell their boats and to buy boats, just like the boat show. This is the place. And when boats get bought and sold, that's when they get worked on. And so this is the place in the whole world. People import their boats here specifically because they want to sell them. This is where, this is the place where it happens. And the industry hub of support for doing that is here. You know, this is yachting capital of the world, you know, and it's more than that. It's the yachting hub of repairs and refit for the world. And that's the industry that we have. That's the industry that I'm in, and it supports many, many families and people in the city of Fort Lauderdale and brings in a nice revenue, as you know. And most of you have been up the river with us, you know, and looked at the boatyards. And so it's a very impressive industry. And it's already here. We don't have to attract it. It's here. You know, we don't have to do anything. You know, just keep it alive, you know. And one way is to not choke off the river or the driveway to get to the places, you know, with this. So the ask is just that for a pause, you know, in issuing waivers for docks or pilings being put into the new river. We're not asking for a pause on docks being able to be built or boat lifts being put in or, you know, whatever along the river as is to code now. But for waivers, for exceptions, that's where the problem is lying. And the ask is for establishing, don't know the exact way, but a workshop for the public and marine industry and marine advisory board and real estate, you know, ideas of, you know, coming up with a solution for what's the best way to deal with this docking issue. Again, we're talking just a couple specific areas, which are above the tunnel. You know, that area is a wide area there, and we had the issues with Salt 7 with the dock, you know, situation there. Same issue. The area just west, you know, of here. And additionally, one area that's of concern is the Little Florida area. And that's one where it's the most difficult part of the river to navigate now. If, you know, large boats start being moored in that area, and I don't have an answer, you know, for it now. But if large boats get moored in that on both sides of the river, it would effectively, you know, either create a toll gate, you know, or it would stop traffic from going up and down the river. That's basically all that I have for an introduction. I'd be happy to answer questions and let anybody else talk too.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I know that this issue has continued to materialize almost every time there is a dock waiver request. So, but before I open up to the commission, I just want to ask a couple questions if I could. So there are really two issues here. One is where we are being asked to give a waiver of the existing measurement that is permitted as a matter of right. And then the question is, the measurement that's a matter of right, is that still appropriate? And you brought up Little Florida, where the property owner that owns the point lot, as a matter of right, could build a dock there up to a certain number of feet, which is going to choke off safe navigation around that bend. And so I think those are two issues we have to discuss, because even the 30% rule, which is a matter of right, threatens the navigational safety of boats. Now, we all recognize that the marine industry is an important industry of Fort Lauderdale, and certainly we want to do whatever we can to foster that industry and to perpetuate it and improve it as we can. So I'm glad you're bringing this to our attention today. I know that 10 years ago I asked that it be brought up because I thought that this whole waiver thing became a rubber stamp of the commission, and I knew at some point it was going to catch up with us, and here we are today. So now most of this is in District 4, if I'm not mistaken. So Commissioner Sturman, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
I'm glad you're still up here. I have a question for you. Well, three-part. Number one, by state law, it's 1/3 of the width of the waterway. Is that correct?
30%.
And by our city, it's 25 feet.
It's a minimum, so it's 25 feet or 30%.
Okay. Is there any spots where
The lesser of the two.
Lesser of the two.
are there any? That's my next question. Are there any spots where 25 feet is more than a third the way through?
Not more than I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know.
That's okay, thank you.
Well, but Little Florida is the issue here with the 25 feet, because those folks have been given a permit to build a dock 25 feet. But if you look at the a bird's eye view of that corner, no vessel can navigate around that corner safely, let alone two. So that's where these issues come up.
Yeah, so it brings up a point that with that, and I don't know that a permit's actually been granted on that, but
It could.
the safe navigation issue becomes a Coast Guard issue, and/or just safe navigation. So even if you're allowed to, with a Little Florida, to do something that would impede safe navigation, that's a separate issue that could be. And the other part that we don't necessarily want to get into would be that the Coast Guard could ultimately take over the river. And because it is a commercial waterway, as it is now, just as Miami became a commercial waterway, but then the Coast Guard is the one who's going to be in charge. And that could be even more detrimental to the property rights of the owners along the river if they expand that to a wider channel, for what it is, and have even more issues or hurdles, to get over to be able to put docks in. So
But the thing is that when a person buys a piece of property on the river or any waterway in the city, they know what the law is. I mean, the law is, the certain dimensions as a matter of right. We're talking for the most part about waivers of that law, right? So if you're asking whether a person is being denied their riparian rights, they're really not being denied their riparian rights if we put a pause, because they can still put a dock up to a
Yes.
certain length that's permitted as a matter of right. So if someone says, "Oh, you're taking away my property rights along the river," we're really not. We're not going to be in the process of granting waivers to that. Is that? Do I understand that correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Is there spots like Little Florida where, I'll ask Dwayne, where based upon the geography or uniqueness, right. Is there spots that we could, that if it's need be, we could be less than the 25 feet or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so some of the area actually is in the downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it's not so much this is another issue, which is the width of the boats. And so we have catamarans now are coming in at 30 feet and 35 feet wide, even for a 40-foot or 50-foot long boat. If those boats were moored on both sides of between the bridges, down here, the canals the river's only like 110 or 115 feet wide. They could easily go over the 30%, or be at 30% with just the width of a boat that they're putting in there. So again, the idea for a workshop to define what are all the different, things. Are there different zones that could be along? And then a very important thing is, what about enforcement? For this.
So, Commissioner,
and
to
how is it measured?
answer the question that you posed, you can take a look at the regulatory scheme that you currently have. We have a regulation that is applied across the board based on the conditions, and this would take some planning and evaluation of the existing conditions, identifying areas and situations that within the public interest there's a need for a different restriction, but what you're looking for is general overall regulatory scheme of dimensions for specific types of areas and conditions. And so that's what a planning effort would allow you to do.
So you're recommending that the commission put a moratorium on further dock waivers until such time as we have a public workshop to get feedback, and then make recommendations from the advisory board to the commission as to steps going forward. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yes, exactly.
All right, Commissioner Herbst, do you want to add to this conversation? Do you have any further comments?
No, Mayor, I think you clarified some of the issues for me, just making sure that we're talking about waivers and not the property rights associated with folks who have purchased their property along the river with an expectation. So thank you.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation, and to the entire board, thank you as well for your work. I really appreciate it. I'm in agreement with everything you're saying. I particularly also wanted to point out, Mayor, that I think the Exhibit 1 on page 3, that attachment really lays out perhaps what the agenda should be if we do have that public workshop. I think it really encapsulates all of the issues that we've been talking about now for months and what you've brought up today. So I'm in favor of that. I just wanted to know from the city attorney's office, how would this take shape, a moratorium, if we decided to do something like this? What would we have to do to initiate that?
So a moratorium has to be adopted in the same dignity as the actual ordinance itself, so it would require the adoption of an ordinance. And moving forward with that ordinance, of course, ordinances are required to be adopted in 2 readings, but we'd have to outlay the facts that that support the actual ordinance or actual moratorium. So some of the testimony that we've heard here from the board, but we would also ask for a more detailed report from the board with regards to these problem areas, defining the boundaries of those problem areas rather than just a general geographic location. And that could be included in the backup that comes before the city commission.
Okay, thank you. So, Mayor, I believe...
Well, in the alternative, we can just put the word out that we're not going to be accepting waivers for the time being.
Well, I don't know if that works, but...
Yeah, so, yeah, I don't think that works either. But
Are you getting legal on me?
No, I'm getting legal on you.
But I do note that the requirement for granting a waiver is an extraordinary circumstance, which should be a high burden to actually cross. So if the word is out with regards to denials that come from the advisory board and that the commission will take those denials seriously, I think that would work towards alleviating any of those concerns as well. But as the mayor has stated before, this is a extraordinary relief. It's not a right that property owners have, and so it's something that they shouldn't have an expectation to obtain.
Great, thanks. So I do favor moving forward in that direction, Mayor, and I think this is really a crucial issue for the industry as we move forward. So I am in favor of moving in that direction.
All right, so
Mr. Mayor,
go
just
ahead.
semantics. The word moratorium is I guess a little chilling. The word pause or suspension, I think, is a term that we use when we discuss this. Calling it that, would that be helpful?
So in your marketing, you probably can call it a pause, but it will have to be adopted as a moratorium. And note that a moratorium has to have a specific time period in which that can be adopted. It has to be of a temporary nature, and we have to be proactive in adopting and doing changes to the ordinance. So anything longer than that, we kind of run into issues, legal issues.
So that's the vocabulary we have to use.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so next steps then, I guess we're assigning your office to come up with language for an ordinance like measure. Is it ordinance or resolution?
It will be an ordinance.
Ordinance. So during those readings, we normally take public input. So that may end up being this workshop, right? All right, we'll just have to go that route then. All right. And if you decide you still want a public workshop, in fact, you can have a public workshop before we put it on the agenda. That might be helpful too, to answer a lot of questions that the public may have that would help deflect some concern when people come to the commission, speaking at the podium for or against. Having the information in advance might be very helpful in that process. So if you decide to convene some kind of public forum, a noticed public forum, where all the members of your board can participate and the public can come, maybe even at your next meeting, right? Make it a public forum with that specific agenda item and then invite the public to come speak. That might be one way to help put the word out and also educate people as to what the process is all about.
I think that's probably very important. I think that the, excuse me, the concern that Commissioner Herbst had with respect to violating anybody's property rights, if somebody purchased a home and assumed by right they can build a dock, we're not suggesting that they vary from that. We're simply suggesting that the folks who bought a house where by right they can put a 25-foot dock, all of a sudden submit a waiver for 60 because they just assume that that is the process here as the...
That's been the history.
The mayor has reused the term rubber stamp. Again, for those of us, and I say this with great respect, we've heard it before, but for those of us that take this board very seriously, that is a slap in the face. And one of the things that we're going to do is demonstrate to you what we do turn down and don't, and make sure that you guys are more aware of it. But we're not taking away anybody's property rights. We will define geographic locations as you had mentioned. And as everybody's agreeing here, we're simply using the term take a breather, take a pause, whatever it may be. And the term that was recommended, we originally thought maybe 6 months would happen. That's obviously not, things just don't happen that quickly. So we are recommending a 1-year suspension, moratorium, pause, whatever.
All right, so why don't you come back with that recommendation? And by the way, the rubber stamp was not your rubber stamping the applicant. It was the commission rubber stamping your recommendation. So it's not a slap in the face.
Well, no, but we did, look, and I appreciate that, but we have, as Jimmy referred to, the issue with the Coral Castle was one that really, that was a slap in the face because we were vehemently opposed to that. And what I realized through a lot of this is it still comes down to the term communication. Mm-hmm. We are not communicating effectively with you guys, and we're going to make sure we do that to make sure you're better informed.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned something only two of you weighed in on, and that's as opposed to a moratorium, you said get the word out that we're not going to be doing it. It's not that formal. And I know the two of you spoke. I'm not opposed to that.
No, it's whatever.
No, we don't have to have a moratorium. We could just say as a policy.
Well, he says we can't.
No, we
do
can't.
That. I agree with you, but
Right.
he says we can't do that.
I agree with
Dwayne says we can't.
I agree with Mr. Spence.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So
Well, what a moratorium does is if the Marine Advisory,
put your mic on.
if the Marine Advisory for whatever reason wants to, as long as we're following their recommendation is the issue here, and they say no is no, but moratorium, like, it's set in stone, so.
Steve, do you or Andrew know what the queue looks like in terms of applications for waivers? Do we have a backlog or?
We do. We do.
Do we know how
I'll
many?
let Andrew address it, but we have quite a few.
On the
waivers
New
scheduled.
River.
Yes.
Well, I don't think on New River. Where's Andrew?
Because I know there's requests on Middle River and other
Yeah.
places, but the New River.
New River.
At this point, we have none on the New River.
Okay.
In queue.
I didn't
Okay,
think
good.
so.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Except for the, I should say 777 and 801 Southwest 6th Street.
coming to you.
Are coming to you in 2 weeks. Okay, sorry.
You mean the Salt 7?
No,
What's 777?
I'm sorry. There are 2 in queue for commission at this point, scheduled for the second meeting in June.
Is that 777 Bayshore?
No.
No, what's 777?
777 Southwest 6th Street, as well as 801 Southwest 6th Street.
Okay, that's right here.
Correct.
Okay.
So the things we're looking at for June, we obviously didn't have a May meeting, and if I recall, Andrew said we have 6 waivers on the agenda for June meeting, but nothing on the river.
Okay. So hopefully in one of your scheduled meetings, you can advertise it as being a public workshop to get feedback from the community on where we go forward. And then Dwayne Spence will prepare the necessary ordinance and then schedule it for the appropriate first and second reading.
Mayor, can I get clarity on the effect of the moratorium? So my understanding from Bob Dunkel is that we were focusing on 3 areas and that we continue to process waivers throughout the rest of the city with the exclusion of these problem areas. or are we looking at a moratorium on the complete waiver
I think we're just
process?
looking at New River.
New River.
Yeah, just the New River.
But all of the New River,
All of the New
not
River.
just a couple layover spots.
Okay.
All of the New River.
Right. From the intercoastal to the head of the river.
At least the north-south fork up there.
Yeah. Okay. Any further questions from the commission? Any further questions from the board? Okay, so I think everyone has their marching orders, right? Thank you, everybody,
Yeah,
for being here
thank you.
today. Yes, Mr. Dunkel, please come up to the podium. It's like at the wedding. If there's anybody who's against this union, please now speak up. There's always someone in the back of the room who at the last minute says, I object.
Bob Dunkel, Assistant City Attorney. I'm a different page in the playbook than having this for all of New River west of the intercoastal.
Well, wait, there's going to be a public discussion with they're asking for that, but I mean, the public is going to come out and there'll be pros and
I'm
cons.
posing this from the perspective of the city attorney's office being responsible for drafting a moratorium ordinance.
Right, but I don't think he can really prepare it until we have some parameters that I think we're going to seek from the Marine Advisory Board.
Well, excuse
Go
me.
ahead.
Early in the conversation, I thought that we had circled 3 areas. And that seemed to be workable from the perspective that I'm always doing these waivers and so on and so forth. I don't think that we need a moratorium for that section of New River west of the west of the intercoastal, all the way up to First Presbyterian Church. That's a very wide stretch of water. It's only when you get deeper into the downtown area and west from there that these waivers become an issue, particularly with regard to impairing navigational rights.
Mr. Whitten, what do you think?
He's absolutely correct. And again, this point had been made before, and I was aware of Mr. Dunkel's position on that. I would recommend that is part of, the answer will be part of what we submit to you.
Right.
I think it's a great thought, but I don't want to miss somebody by 10 feet just because we draw a line somewhere.
Right.
So with permission, we will certainly come back and recommend something along those lines.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Because the mouth of the river is pretty
Dramatically
wide.
different.
Yeah, it's pretty wide. Yeah. Yes, sir.
It actually would be from like.
Wait, can you come up? Yeah, we can't record your voice unless you're in the microphone.
Yeah, to define it a little closer would be from the Cooley Park at the beginning of New River to like Bradford Marine. That's the corridor.
So you come back to us with what those specifics are, and then we'll be able to incorporate that in the ordinance that we would be asked to pass.
That'd be great.
Okay, anyone else in the back? Okay, anything else? Okay, this meeting is now concluded. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you for lunch again. It was
Of course.
really-